you've ever had delicious soup in a restaurant and you wondered how they make it and why it's so good, I thought I'd make some mushroom soup and show you how really, really easy it is to make soup. It's like one of the most basic things. And if you can make soup, then you should be able to make things like sauces as well. I think it's easy to forget when you are accomplished at something, like I'm good at cooking because I've done it all my life, how difficult other people might find that, and how it's just mysterious. And I always think, well, why don't you just follow a recipe? But maybe it's easier to have somebody show you what they do, and then you can replicate that. Just, you're going to take your mushrooms. I've got these lovely big field mushrooms, which I bought in Bio Co-op a couple of days ago. They're organic. It doesn't matter how small you chop them up. I suppose if you chop them up smaller, they're going to cook faster. I'm just going to go through this. I've just got a nice big sharp knife. And alternatively, if you wanted to make this in a really big quantity, like you were going to make it 5 gallons of soup, stick them in a food processor and roughly chop them. Be much quicker. But all you actually need is a knife, a board, a pan. I've stuck some butter in there, and I probably used 3 ounces of butter because it's going to give it a really lovely, delicious flavour and give it some depth of flavour. Don't use margarine, it's shit. Use quality, real foods. I'm only show you how to cook with real food. Those mushrooms are going to go in there first. I'm going to put the lid on so they start to sweat. And while those are sweating off, I'm going to chop up my onion. And you don't have to have a blender, but a stick blender is a brilliant thing to have in your kitchen because you can use it for many different jobs. Or you could use a NutriBullet, also really useful. Or you could use your food processor, that would work too, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook the mushrooms, I'm going to fry off the onions, and then I'm going to add some garlic in there as well, and then I'm going to blend the whole thing up together. I'm going to add stock to it. And my friend Dave in Switzerland is vegetarian, so he would be using vegetable stock, but I'll probably use a meat stock so that I can add some extra protein into there. In the absence of a bin, I'm just going to shove that over there. So let me move that so you can see what I'm doing. They're just going to start sweating, doing their thing. This is how I chop onions. You chop it in half. I know you're supposed to keep the point of the knife on the board, but I've always chopped onions like this, and it's always worked. There we go. That's the professional way. Always keep your fingers out of the way, especially if you're vegetarian. Don't want any bits of meat in there. And I've got to be pretty nifty with this because the light's going. I've got this pan here, which is deep enough, and it's going to be my pan I'm going to blend in a minute as well. Mushrooms, they've been in there for about 6 or 7 minutes. They're now cooked plenty. Into there. This is a ceramic pan. I don't use non-stick pans anymore because I've found out that non-stick coatings, even before they're damaged, non-stick coatings are releasing chemicals that are getting into us, which are not doing us any good at all. Stop using those. This one's ceramic coated. You've still got to be careful. As soon as that coating is damaged, scratched, then underneath it's not going to be good for going in your body. Just get rid of the pan and start again. Also, don't overheat these type of ceramic pans because they're quite sensitive, as I found when I wrecked another one this week by turning the temperature up on high, forgetting about it, turning around, I'd burnt the pan. That's the end of that pan. I'm going to put the lid on that as well. If you want onions to cook faster and you don't want to add any more fat to them, you can add a bit of water, but because I love butter and I think it's good for me and I need the fats to build my hormones, I'm going to just add a bit more butter to mine. But do keep an eye on it because butter will catch. Again, if you have the temperature turn up too high, the butter's going to burn. This is French President organic butter. It's really nice. Unsalted. I always buy butter unsalted now because I prefer to add my own salt of my choice, and this is Redmond real salt. So add some of that in there. Don't be afraid of salt. We've been made to fear it over the last, 40 years. Been told it's bad for us. It's going to give us high blood pressure. It's bad for our hearts. It's nothing of the sort. If you don't believe me, then read a book by James D. Nicolantonio, who's written a brilliant book. He's a doctor and he's written a book all about this, researched all into salt and why we do need it, why we need it for many functions in the body. We can't overdose on it because if you have too much, you just excrete what you don't need, but you do need it. So don't be afraid of salt. Be afraid if you don't include salt in your diet, because it actually does more harm to not have the salt than to have it. Right, I'm squashing these. It's a bit old, this garlic. They should come off more easily than that. You squash, give them a squash, and then they peel more easily. Garlic is a fantastic ingredient because it's so flavoursome. I've used 5 big cloves here. It doesn't need as much cooking as the onion, so that's why I haven't added it already. God, they really don't want to peel these ones. Usually you can just give them a sharp smack with a knife and then they peel off really easily. These ones are being a bit obtuse. Not just throwing this on the floor, I have got the bin down there. Chop the garlic roughly. You don't need to use a garlic crusher, just chop it all up. Keep your fingers out of the way. If you always keep the end of the knife on the board and chop like that. This is for beginners, so if you feel like it's like your grandma teaching you how to suck eggs, then I did say at the beginning, this is for people who maybe don't know how to make soup, and when I'm always banging on about eating real food, people don't know how to prepare real food, because when I was at school in the 80s and I took cookery because I loved cooking, and I've been cooking at home since I was like 7. Cookery lessons were already dying out. Shove that in the pan with the onions. You can see they're sweating away nicely there. Because I've had the lid on, there's been absolutely no burning. You obviously still need to keep an eye on them. Back in the 80s, when I was doing cookery at school, it was optional, you didn't have to do it. And already it was becoming less popular. By the time my kids were at school, it was something that was done as an extra club, and it just died out. It just died out. Teaching people how to prepare real food, it's so important. I'm talking about taking basic ingredients, mushrooms, onions, garlic. We're going to use some stock in a minute, which I've made from bones. You could use vegetable stock, which you can make from vegetable peelings, or you can buy a packet of cubes and use those, but then you don't know what ingredients are in it, so it's better to make your own. But if you haven't got time, or you really haven't got the wherewithal, you don't want to be making stock from scratch, you can buy fresh stock as well, obviously. But just making real food and how to put those ingredients together and have them taste fantastic. I'm going to let that cook on for another couple of minutes. A little bit of colour into the onions, but if there's no colour, it doesn't matter. I just always feel there's more flavour when you get a little bit of colour developing. I just feel that the flavour comes out of the onions better. If I put the lid on that, those mushrooms will carry on sweating. I'm going to go and strain off my stock I've just made and then do the final step. Put the whole lot together. It's as easy as that. I've got some over here. I'm going to use the stick blender. These cost next to nothing. Buy the best quality one you can afford. I once bought some really cheap stick blenders in a hypermarket in France, hypermarché in France, and they were to go in my gîtes. I had 3 holiday cottages, and these were only €10. I thought they are brilliant. They were brightly coloured, plastic. I put one in a pan of soup like this, and it just completely melted. Do buy the best quality you can. Ever since then, I've only bought metal stick blenders. I've also got some dill here and some fennel, and I'm going to put some of those in because I love those flavours. My eldest daughter hates the flavour of dill, and I don't really understand why, because to me it's a very mild flavour. And I'm going to put some actually it's not black pepper, it's mixed peppercorns. I'm going to put some pepper in there. And then the salt, I will wait till the end to season it with any more salt so I can check the flavour. My onions are now cooked sufficiently. Like I said, you could cook them on a little more if you wanted more colour, but I'm working against the clock here because the sun is setting and I want to do this before the light starts to fade in this room. Add those to the mushrooms. That's the onions and garlic. If you're vegetarian, if you want to keep this as a vegetarian soup, vegetable stock. And if it's a meat, or if you're not a vegetarian and you want to add meat for the extra additional protein, that's fine too. I don't measure anything, as you might have noticed. This is about 1.5 pints of stock. Pour that into there. It depends how thin you want your soup. This is going to be quite a thin soup. I might not add all of that for a minute. And then I'm going to add some cream, double, the equivalent of heavy cream or double cream. I'm going to add about that much. There we go. What was that? Quantity wise, I suppose that was 2/3 of a cup of cream. Again, entirely up to you how much you want to add. And I'm going to use my stick blender now and just blend that right up. So I've still kept the heat under that because I want it to come almost back to the boil. Because it's a stick blender, there's always going to be a few chunks of mushroom in there. You can obviously blend as long as you like. There's a few bits of mushroom, but I feel that's going to make it more interesting. Right, let's do the taste test. Now, you may be surprised to learn, as well as learning if you were listening earlier, that salt is not bad for us. But when you eat food in restaurants and you think, God, it's so delicious, how do they make it taste so good in restaurants? And when I make it at home, it's bland and it doesn't taste good. Mostly it's salt. And I know this because I'm not just making this up. I did do my chef's training when I was a teenager. I know how much salt we added in the commercial kitchens I've worked in. And don't be afraid of it. It's good for you. Good to get a good mineral salt like Redmond's or Malden sea salt or one from a trusted source, and add it to your taste. And there you have it. That is how easy. Let me just show you that. Can you see that there? Can you see how? I know what we'll do. We'll pop it in a bowl and show you how good it looks over here, like this. I didn't actually need all of that stock. Again, it's like just learn to cook with intuition rather than by following recipes. Use the ingredients that you like the taste of. And that's always how I cook these days. I just cook so it tastes good to me. There's a few chunks of mushroom in there. If I put that in my NutriBullet, it would be smooth, 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 creamy smooth, right, really blended. But because I did it with that stick blender and I didn't go on for very long, it has a few chunks of mushroom, but hey, that's just going to make it more interesting. Does anybody else find this new thing with the bottles, with the bit of plastic that hangs on by a thread, super annoying like I do? I know it's more eco-friendly, but hey, I put both parts in the bin. Right, just a little swirl of cream there that you can't see. Let's just stir it with the tip of my knife. I'm going to taste that again now, and I'm sure it's going to taste beautiful. And it does. It's so nice, so easy. Onion, garlic, fry it in butter, fry mushrooms in butter, put them together, throw in some stock, bring it back to them, almost to the boil, chuck in some cream, blend it. There you have it, mushroom soup. So easy, so good for you, so delicious. And on that basis, you could make that broccoli soup. You could have made, instead of mushrooms, you could have made it a squash soup. Squash is amazing, it's creamy and sweet tasting. You could have added some nut butter to it if you wanted to add more protein and you don't eat meat. If you're a meat eater, you could add chopped up roast chicken, for example, or you could put some ham in there. You could make a pea and ham soup. That's peas and chopped up ham. Add the ham at the end. With meat in soups like that, if you're just adding it cooked already, make sure it's heated through fully before you eat it. Don't want to give anybody food poisoning, but that is how easy it is. It's really simple to cook real food and feed your family on ingredients that are not expensive but nutritious and delicious. Hope that was helpful. If you like the content on my channel, please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you on my next video. I'm not a cooking channel, I'm just sharing the journey of how I changed my health from super unhealthy to much, much better and fitter and happier as I am today. But obviously that requires cooking real food and fueling my body with real healthy, nutritious ingredients. And there you have it. Bye for now.